I was married to my husband, Mark Mulford. We were married for nearly 18 years. We had 4 children when he unexpectedly had a heart attack and died very suddenly. And our oldest son was 15 years old. Then we had an 8-year old, and we had a 2-year old and a new baby who was 4 months old. And my whole world turned upside down at that point in my life. And I don't think I'll ever be the exact same person in a lot of ways that I was then. But I'm also have learned so much from that experience. I think I've grown a lot from the experience of being single and being a single mom. And I put the word overwhelmed there by my story because if you want to sum up how it feels to all of a sudden be a single parent, it's overwhelmed. At least for me, it was just overwhelming. There were so many, because it was so sudden and so shocking for me. I had what is called widow's brain. And there were so many times I didn't know where I was. I didn't know what I was really doing. I would be driving and not know where I was going. I remember grocery shopping one time and coming home, and I had 5 bags that were filled with different kinds of nuts. And I don't even like nuts. And so I don't know why I bought them. But my oldest son, who was 15, kind of looked at me and said, Mom, maybe I'll do the shopping for a while. So it was just a real shock to me. And I wanted to share, I was a single mom for 5 years before I met and remarried my husband, Jeff Hill, who I'm married to today. He's a widower, and together we have 12 children. But there were 2 experiences particularly that I thought I'd just briefly share about my story of being a single mom. One way of how to support someone being single in a really awesome way, and one way in a not as awesome of a way. And so the first story is the awesome way. My son Ryan was 8 years old when his dad died, and he had just started Cub Scouts. And he was so excited. He'd been waiting and waiting to do this. And he went to Cub Scouts. This was probably 3 months after Mark died, and came home just elated because they'd gotten their little kits that they were going to build their Pinewood Derby cars. And my heart just sank. I kept a smile on my face as best as I could, but my heart sank. I thought, I don't have the skills set to help create a Pinewood Derby car. And I had thoughts like, this is the most unchristian church there is to make people make Pinewood Derby cars. And I had a lot of those kinds of thoughts. Well, after dinner that night, I got a phone call, and it was from Ryan, my son Ryan's good friend's father. His name is Lonnie Nelson. And Lonnie called me and said, Tammy, would it be okay if Ryan came over and helped me build Pinewood Derby cars with my boys? And I remember I sat down and just started to cry right there on the phone and told him he was such an answer to my prayers. That was a wonderful way how to support someone that is single in the church. The second way, a wonderful man, and I just adore him, and I won't say his name, but we happened to be having a big word Christmas social get together for couples. And this was a couple years after my husband had died, and I'd been a widow for a little while. And he called me to tell me about the event. And then he happened to say, do I have to find someone for you to go out with to this event? Do you need me to find you a date? And I just I was so shocked by that question. And I said, no, absolutely not. I'll just come alone. Or if there's someone I want to come with, then I'll bring them with me. So that was an example of maybe not the best way to show support for single members in the church. I thought tonight what I would talk about really quickly is, first of all, what can we do as single members of the church? How can we strengthen ourselves? What can we do to get through some of the tough, lonely nights that we experience when we're single? And then at the very end, something that all of us can do to support those who are single around us. Okay, next slide. So I happen to have a podcast that is called Live Your Why, WHY, not Y like BYU. Live Your Why. And I really believe I do therapy. When I taught at BYU, I taught around the principle of living your why, of choosing to live aligned. And when I think single or married, whatever season of life, Living aligned is essential for your personal happiness. Vertical alignment means that you are choosing to line yourself up with your eminence towards heaven, however you want to phrase it, but lining yourself up with God. And we do that by building a close relationship with our heavenly parents and with Jesus Christ. And we do a lot of that by studying the gospel, really taking time to study the gospel. I love studying the gospel by topics. And when I was a widow, that was one of the things that brought me great joy, was studying the gospel. I also love listening to incredible uplifting podcasts or watching firesides like this one. Focus on today. The only power we have is for today. What's happened behind us is behind us. What happens in front of us is in front of us. But what's happening right now is where we have the opportunity to choose. And so I really try to encourage people to choose in the moment, to be present, and to live a life. Avoid those things, temptations and pitfalls that you know that you have. And we all have different things we struggle with. Do what you can to shore yourself up and avoid those particular situations. And of course, repenting and trying to realign every day is really important. I always tell people that when you are living aligned, this is who you want to be. This is what you're striving to become, this particular hand, and it's pointing towards heaven. And this right here is actually what you're choosing to do or say. So this is who you want to be, and this is who you are in a moment. And I believe the gulf of misery that's talked about in the Book of Mormon is actually the distance between how we're living aligned and what we're actually doing. So the more unaligned you are choosing to live with how you want to be, the more miserable you will be. I know it. You know it. We all know what it feels like to be miserable. And so I really encourage you to shrink that distance in that gulf of misery, shrink it and choose to live aligned. Ultimately, that vertical alignment is going to bring you peace, satisfaction, and I think happiness, because you're living you the way you want to be living you. I'm going to grab a drink quick while you switch the slide. One of the things that was really hard for me when I was single were the lonely nights that seemed endless sometimes. I think because I'm a marriage and family therapist, a sex educator and therapist, I'm passionate about marital love. I'm passionate about the opportunity to share and learn about ourselves sexually and share that within a marriage construct. And so when you're single, you don't have that relational piece of being able to expand and learn about yourself sexually. And so for me, those nights as a widow were definitely my hardest times. I always hated going to bed. So there were some things that I learned that helped me be able to manage myself better when I went to bed. If I exercised really vigorously in the morning, made sure I got my heart rate up and I had good exercise in the morning, it would help me to sleep better at night. If I exercised in the evenings, I had more restless sleep. I would try not to nap during the days. Stay awake. Even if you didn't sleep well the night before, stay awake so you can get back on those good sleeping patterns. I think containing your suffering. Every one of us suffer in unique ways. And this is a therapeutic model or intervention where if you're really hurting, it's okay to hurt and you don't want to ignore that pain or stifle or try to suppress what it is you're feeling. However, if you're letting that suffering kind of seep into every aspect of your life all day long, and you think, oh, I'm a widow now, or oh, I'm still single, or I'm this or whatever, when those thoughts come to our mind and we start ruminating there, it can take the joy out of every single day. So I really challenge you. What I did is to learn to contain my suffering. And so, usually for about a half an hour, sometime during the day, I would let myself feel all the pain that I had of being alone. I would talk out loud to my husband. I would talk out loud through prayer. I would really just get myself into the place where I was hurting and suffering and just feeling that pain. And then when the half an hour was up, I would usually close my time with a prayer that hey, I was able to feel what I'm feeling right now. I need to move on with my day. I need to smile when my children get home from school. I need to be able to function better than I have been. And so I'm containing this emotion, and tomorrow I'll open it up again and feel it. But right now I need to move forward and not spend any more time here. Containing suffering can be a very impactful way to help you as you suffer or as you're in pain. One of the things, if you like it or not, is that dating is a real social emphasis for singles. Maybe you felt that. Back in the olden days when I lost my husband, we were called special interest folks. And so I can remember just a couple of months after my husband died, the special interest folks brought by the flyer to start coming to all the single activities, and with the idea you're going to meet someone and then date them and end up being married. And that those are painful activities sometimes to attend, especially if you're not really ready to be there. I want to talk just a minute about thoughts around dating, because oftentimes, with the idea that you need to socialize to move forward in a relationship, a romantic relationship, there can be so much pressure. I like to take the pressure off the dating word and call it making a new friend. Choose to find new friends. Choose to find qualities in other people that you admire. Look for the good in others and spend time together doing things that are more friendly without the focus of needing to be romantic or affectionate. Also, if you are confused in those relationships as you start interacting with other singles, I encourage you to slow down physically. If you have a lot of physical touch with someone, hugging, kissing, spending a lot of time making out, that's all fun. We all enjoy that. However, if there's a lot of this physical connection and going on with someone that we are not really having a lot of emotional investment in, it's going to cause a lot of confusion. The best way to not be confused about who you are going out with or making friends with is to take the physical part off out of the relationship and just really focus as long as you can on building the real abiding friendship. And also, I think it's important for everyone. This is an essential conversation for parents who have children who are starting to date, to understand and decide what different types of physical touch actually mean to you. Each one of us might have a little different tweak on what it means to us. What does holding hands mean to you when you're in a relationship with someone? What does holding hands mean? What does it mean when you kiss them goodnight? What does it mean if you're snuggling up and kissing and watching a movie? Those different types of ways that we are touching need to be symbolic of the emotional intimacy and commitment to the relationship. If they're not, that is going to just cause all kinds of confusion, and the relationship won't sustain itself. If you find yourself getting in relationships every 3 to 4 months and getting in and out, you think it's great, and then 4 months or 3 or 4 or 5 months later, you're moving on, it's very likely that you've put way too much emphasis on the physical aspect of the relationship instead of really deepening what the friendship is all about. If you spend time becoming dear friends before you start incorporating the physical touch, it will bless your relationship with a lot of peace, lack of confusion, and also you're able to be really aligned because what you're doing and how you're touching one another is really congruent with who you are. So, those were a few things that we can do as single people to kind of get our heads around social experiences as well as lonely nights. What I think is good in this next slide that I have here is how you can be a true friend to someone who is single. And it's very likely you probably know a lot of people or several people who are single adults within the church. Single people in the church needs friends every bit as everyone else. So, a few thoughts. One, be available. That means that you respond when they text. You check in with them regularly and just see how are things going. And the focus of the conversation doesn't need to be on a dating relationship or how's their love life kind of things, but more checking in, how are you feeling? How are your goals going? What's going on at work or school? Checking in on matters that are other than relational matters. Comfort. Be there to comfort. Let them know that as you go to bed that you can use the excuse me, let me back up. My sister would always say when I would go to bed, put my name in as your redial, a number. And if any time through the night you start feeling really lonely and sad, just hit redial and I'm on the other end. Be someone that can be there to comfort when that feels so hopeless and overwhelming. I think it's important as a true friend to someone who's single not to interfere with the decisions they're making for their lives. As a matter of fact, the more you try to intervene and control or make suggestions or advise around what they should be doing, often that can distance the friendship and it can make the person believe that they aren't capable of making good decisions for themselves. And so I think it's important to do what you can to listen, perhaps in subtle ways, have them look at different types of information to questions they might have. But all in all, they need to be able to choose for themselves. You don't need to try to control what it is you're choosing for them. That's something I see a lot when I was at BYU, where parents were still trying to control what their single adult children were choosing. That's not your role. We need to each choose for ourselves. And then encouragement. Oh, encouragement is so big for every one of us. Encouraging people to, what are you learning? Take a class together. Learn how to watercolor or do stained glass windows together. Plan hikes together. Do things that you can plan and give opportunities for individual growth as well as for relational growth within your dynamic. And also always encourage personal alignment. For someone, I think, asks the question, what do you think I should do about this? Or what do you think I should do about this? I think a great response is, you know your why. You know what you really want to have happen in life. When you settle down and really ask yourself what's best for you, what is it that you feel? Help them learn that they can make their own decisions and through their alignment, they can receive great revelation for their own lives. This is a picture of me with my children right before I met my husband, Jeff Hill. It had been about 5 years that I had been single. In that time, there was so much that I learned and became so grateful for the opportunity to learn to thrive alone, to learn to be able to really rely upon myself and my own ability to discern from heaven. Those were really important skills for me to have as I move forward in my life. I'm sorry, I can't remember if that was my last slide, but anyway, this is how you can find me. But I think more important than that is I just want you to know that as you navigate your life of being single, whether it's been a long time that you've been single, a short period of time that you've been single, it doesn't really matter, because in either situation, whether it's been long or short, I do know that one thing you can always ask for is strength to get up and keep going. That is the only prayer I know in my life that I always get answered. There are a lot of prayers I don't know that they are answered particularly, and there's some prayers I know directly have been answered. But the prayer that I always offer is strength to get through this moment, strength to get up and smile and go about today as best as I can, strength to be able to get through another night alone in a way that's aligned with who you want to be. I know that God does hear our prayers pertaining to strength. And I encourage you to pray for strength as you move forward in your life. And I know that you can receive a lot of comfort as you do so. And I say this in the name of Jesus Christ. Amen.